I'm going to walk you through how you can make decisions as a product manager. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another video. My name is Alex. If you want to learn about business and product management, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything. Also, smash the like button and share this video with any of your friends interested in building or product management. This is video number 5 in our product manager training series. I have links down in the description below to other episodes in this series. And of course, if there's any other product management topics you'd like to cover, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. So today we're going to be talking about how to actually make decisions as a product manager. We alluded to some of these things in other videos. And by the way, a huge part of making decisions is actually cutting through all the ambiguity that exists and understanding the decision space. So first, make sure you check out the video about how to get through ambiguity as a product manager. Is a separate video, and then come back here. We'll talk about how to actually make those decisions. So let's jump in. As a product manager, you're going to need to make a lot of decisions. Hopefully some of the decisions you're going to be able to make quickly without involving necessarily a bigger team, but most of the important decisions are going to be made as a group, which means you're going to need your cross-functional team aligned with you, and a lot of times other stakeholders and other parts of the organization aligned as well. So the way that you make decisions is going to need to be crisp, concise, and structured. Let's go over a few key things to remember as you're making these decisions. First thing to keep in mind is your product goal. What is the goal of the product, the key metric of the product? What problem are you trying to solve? Then next to that, keep in mind the mission or the vision of the company itself. Those two concepts are going to be foundational to the decisions that you make. And you always want to keep them in mind as you're making decisions. By the way, if you're just considering the product management career, I have a separate video talking about how to break into the product manager career field. You might find it interesting. So at the very basic level, what you want to do is write out the list of pros and cons for every decision that you want to make. Now, these are meaningful decisions. You don't need to write this out for every decision you do. So as you're thinking about which decisions to actually spend time breaking down, consider the following questions. Is this an important decision? Meaning, does it impact the product goals or the overall organization mission or vision? Is this a decision that needs to be made right now? Or if not now, when does this decision need to be made? Is this a decision that actually needs to be made? It might be important, but do you need to make it? Does someone else need to make it? Does it need to be made at all? Who is needed to actually make this decision? If it's a group of people, who are these people and why? After running through all those questions, you should have a pretty good idea of whether this is a decision that requires a structured approach, or if it's something that can be made later, or is maybe irrelevant to the product or the company, or does not really concern you or the team, or does not need to be dealt with at this time or in the short or medium term. It's important to prioritize as a product manager. I have a separate video talking about prioritization. Check that out right there. Make sure you're actually focusing on the decisions that matter. Assuming this is a decision that does need to be made and does need to be structured and presented, now it's time to think about the pros and cons. Break down into the possible decision paths. What are the options? Are there 2, 3, 4 options? Does one option lead to an additional path? If you have a big fork, a big decision path to make, either decision A or decision B, pros and cons are ideal for that situation. What are the positives that are going to happen from decision 1 versus decision 2? And what are the negatives? Sometimes the positives for decision 1 are the negatives for decision 2 and vice versa. But in other situations, it might be a different set of pros and cons for either decision point. Sometimes you can be done just with that, coupled with data, intuition, and tying it to the product goal and the overall mission of the company if possible. You might be able to make a decision right there between 2 or 3 options just from the pros and cons. If you still don't feel strongly, or your team members don't feel strongly, that one of the paths is the right path to take, and you don't think you can get buy-in from the key stakeholders about that, then you can go a little bit further. Think of it as a decision tree. What happens when you choose option 1? What are the consequences of choosing that path? Are there certain paths that you can go down there as well? Certain follow-up decision inflection points? Map those out as well. If there's some situation that you think is likely or not likely to happen, you can actually add weights, probability weights to those decision paths if you want to get a little bit more complicated. But if you want to keep it relatively simple, just chart down all the possibilities of everything that could happen. You take decision path A, then there's 2 more options. What is each of those options going to bring? And by the way, when you're thinking about pros and cons and what are the different things that can happen, think about mainly how it impacts the product itself, the users of the product, any revenue, any key metrics of the product, any adjacent products or services that your company offers, any competitors or competitor products or offers, additional costs in terms of resources, engineering or sales or marketing. Think if there's any repercussions from different timing aspects, launch now versus launch later, certain features available now versus later, how different segments of customers might be affected, how your customer service or other departments might be affected, and try to identify 3 or 4 key variables or key issues to focus on when you're considering all of these permutations, and focus your attention on maximizing the key metric that you actually want to focus on. That again ties back into your product goal and your overall mission objectives. Think about first order consequences, what will directly happen as a result of your decisions or your actions. And then think about second order consequences. What will happen as a result of those events taking place, if you can. This takes a little bit of practice. It does require you to think like a product manager. And we have a separate video talking about how to think like a product manager. Let's take an example. You're trying to decide between launching a product now within the next couple of weeks or launching in 3 months with an added feature. You have 2 basic options. So you want to draw out the different pros and cons. Let's assume that you are an early stage startup and this is one of the key 3 features that you wanted to have in your MVP, and you already did the other 2. And so now the question is launch without this 3rd feature or launch in 3 months with the feature intact. So you might actually draw out what happens if you launch now. If you launch now, what's going to happen from the user's point of view? What will their experience be like? You wanted to have 3 features in the original MVP, now you have 2 features. What can you expect to happen to the users? Engagement, interest in the product, retention, how likely are they to return? Does this feature impact their ability to actually solve whatever problem they had, whatever problem you intended to solve? If so, how much does it still let them solve this problem? Do you expect them to come back as much, or do you expect to lose some users as a result of not launching this feature? How many, and what is the impact of that? Finally, if monetization is involved, what do you expect the impact of that to be? And you're thinking about the overall mission of the company, the vision of the company, and what the product was supposed to be, and what it means to deliver now. Are there any other pieces that are not ready to be delivered now? Is everything else ready? Which means that theoretically you could actually release now, or are there other things that you might need to take care of which will still delay the launch? So there might be some intangibles there. And then the second side of things you have, it'll delay the project by 3 months. It'll add an extra feature. It'll add an extra maintenance cost of supporting that feature. It'll add an extra risk of bugs and regression issues arising from adding that feature. So all of those risks add up. However, it might, on the pros side, which were the cons of the first option, on the pros side, it might unlock extra retention or engagement or even monetization and a certain additional percentage of the user base. Additionally, it might allow us to do something on the marketing side of things, a stronger marketing push, for instance. Back on the cons, we have the costs. Additional 3 months. If this is the long pull, and this is actually the thing that is delaying our initial release, that means we've lost 3 months on the market. What does this mean for our cash flow? What does this mean for our burn rate? What does this mean for our future financing opportunities? Given that we are an early stage startup, time is money. We don't necessarily know if we're going to get a second chance. Speaking of making decisions quickly and speaking of that velocity in decision making, you might intuitively lean towards an MVP version and releasing just the 2 features, not the 3 features that you wanted, because you're an early stage startup and you want to move fast. However, it may not be quite that simple, because as you can see, we've amassed quite a list of pros and cons on both sides. Now, what decision do you take? Actually, let me know down in the comments which option you would go just from the information that's available here. Option 1, launch now with 2 of the 3 features that you picked, or option 2, launch in 3 months with 3 of the features that you initially planned. Given the pros and cons that we just discussed, what would you do? Ideally, you choose a direction and you'd align the folks that you'd need to align on the decision of your choice and back it up with as much data as you can actually procure and as much relation to the product goal and the company mission as possible. Another important element that I wanted to talk about is the benefit of doing retrospectives. Sometimes you don't have time to do those. If you're constantly running, you won't have time to actually do a retrospective and understand what happened. Was this decision the correct decision? And if not, why? Was it your decision-making process that was at fault? Or was it any other number of circumstances that could have been involved? These retrospectives don't have to be fully detailed. And again, it depends on whether you're working in a big company or a startup or somewhere in between. The amount of time that this process should take and the people that you should involve, of course, will be different depending on the type of company that you have. But the important thing is to do these and actually jot down just a short summary, even a couple of sentences of what went right, what went wrong, and what we should do in the future. We'll do a separate episode on retrospectives, and maybe we'll add a link right there when it comes up. The important thing to remember about retrospectives is those three aspects. Stop doing something that didn't work out well. Start doing some of these other ideas to experiment with, and continue doing some of these things that have worked well. And that's the importance of retrospectives. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash the like button as always, and share with your friends that are interested in building or product management. Also, don't forget there's a link for my newsletter down in the description below. Sign up for that if you want to be notified about webinars, Q&A sessions, resume review workshops in advance, so you can join us for that. If you want to watch this product manager training playlist from the beginning, follow this link. And if this got you interested in product management, check out this video to find out if you've got the attributes it takes to actually succeed as a product manager. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.